Oh, it's showtime, boys and girls. Greetings, salutations, respect, and love. It's the Sunday Prog stream, and today I've assembled an all-star cast where we are going to be talking about underrated prog albums. I told the panel 5, and I'm sure I'm going to get like 20 from each. So we're not going to waste a whole bunch of time here today. I'm just going to start out by saying, Wayne, how you doing in Alberta? You're looking confused.
No, it's not bad up here. Team close to us, one went away from Stanley Cup Finals in hockey, so that's pretty much taken some attention away. But had a great week.
An Oilers fan, are we?
Yeah, ton of great albums listening to this week, and yeah, me and Butch Jones from Sea of Tranquility, go Oilers. So
there you go. There you go. Cody, how you doing on the other part of Canada? We got Ontario represented here today.
Woo! Yes. Brockway's Vinyl Bites is doing really good. I'm doing really good. Yeah, I've been putting out some cool content on the channel. Everything's been great. Having a good time.
Were you a Maple Leafs fan? Were you shedding a tear?
Blasphemy, I know. I'm not a sports guy.
Oh, okay. Very good. Scott Davis from Mythologic is in the house.
How's everybody doing?
I can always count on you. Last minute, we had the one, the only Matt Brown had to pull out, and I gave Scott the call, and like usual, Johnny on the spot. He put together a list in no time flat.
Well,
I really
Prog is my life.
Yeah, I feel funny about 5 faces on a live stream. It's got to be 6, otherwise it makes me feel a little sketchy and a little weird. That's my OCD. And Pontus, the Swedish prog nerd, back where you belong on the Sunday Prog stream. Pontus,
yeah, it's great to be here. It's great to be here. It's really summer in here. It's really hot. I think it's 26 degrees Celsius, and it's sort of, lots of drinking.
It's coming.
Lots of water.
I was just talking to Hans Luden from Kaipa the other day, and he was saying the weather in Sweden was getting pretty decent right now.
Yeah,
a tough winter.
We're having absolutely. We have a pre-summer sort of thing, right?
But man, I'm Pontus. I'm bursting at the seams because we've got ourselves a brand new face up here on the Sunday Prog stream. His very first time. It's none other than the one, the only Davey Cretan. Davey, how you doing? Where are you sitting today?
In New York. As if you can't tell by my accent. Yep. Total New Yorker with this thick New York accent.
Right. You repping all 5 boroughs, or are you a Brooklyn guy? You a Bronx guy? What?
Queens, just like the Ramones. Just like Ramones.
Good.
And the Mets.
Hollis, Kew Gardens. Yo, you don't know nothing until you've been to Queens, man. Absolutely, the Ramones. Yeah, I should have known. One look at Davey, I should have known exactly which borough he was repping. But today, man, I am so excited. We're going to be talking about 5 underrated prog albums. And, we can go any way we want to go, and this is prog, so I know certain people certainly have a few more than 5, and that's okay, because there are no rules. It's prog rock, so I was looking at, do I want to do old prog, classic prog, modern stuff? Man, there's so many different ways you can go, because honestly, you can make a case that every single prog rock album ever released is kind of underrated to a certain degree or not, because it is prog, the perpetual underdog. But I kind of want to start with our new guest. I want to see what Davey's got going on. I'm going to put him on the spot right here because he was having some problems with his mic and his audio about 5 seconds before we went on live here. So, let's just get it over and done with, like ripping the Band-Aid off, and you'll feel a whole lot better once it's over, Davey. I promise we'll go easy on you.
Thank you. And thanks for having me, by the way, Scott.
It's our honor and pleasure. We've been talking about having you on for a while, so
Uh-oh.
Hey, where'd he go? Where'd he go?
Oh,
There he is.
I am. I'm popping on and off. Okay. Am I doing all 5 at once?
Yeah. This is your time to shine.
And what about honorable mentions? Now or later?
Give it all. Give us
Do it all. Okay.
Give me everything you got.
I'm going in year order. That's the way I've organized my notes. And I'm starting off at the heavier end of progressive rock, technically progressive metal from 1995 on the Magna Carta label. Any guesses, anyone?
Magellan.
Close,
No.
but not Magellan.
Not Magellan. Cairo?
It's Shadow Gallery.
Nice pull.
Their second album, Carved in Stone. And how often do you see a record that starts with track 1 and then goes to track 3, 5, 7, 11, 13? They have segues or instrumental interludes in between certain tracks. So this is my favorite Shadow Gallery record. I've always loved this album. These guys are produced by Carl Caden James, who's the bassist and songwriter, and the band Shadow Gallery. They co-produced the record. This is prog rock and prog metal, and it's like a cross between Dream Theater and Styx, Kansas, with Queen-esque vocals from the underrated and late Mike Baker, an amazing singer. And this is the record that I recommend everyone check out if you're not familiar with Shadow Gallery. They're from Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. They started in the 80s as Sorcerer, and then when they got signed to Magna Carta in the early 90s, they changed their name to Shadow Gallery. This is the second of 6 studio records that they've done. Their first album actually had a drum machine on it, but you really can't tell, and it's still a great record. But I love the second album. Mike Baker is on lead and backing vocals. Oh, yeah. He forgot about them, but he remembers that they're a great band. Thank you, Manuel. Mike Baker on lead vocals, Carl Caden James, who I mentioned, on bass, backing vocals, some lead vocals, fretless bass, and flute for those fans of Genesis, Heart, and Jethro Tull. Brent Allman on lead guitars, electric and acoustic. He sings too. The great, underrated Chris Ingalls on synths and piano. That guy was some player. And when the band lost him, I think they lost a tiny little bit. Gary Werkamp, this is his first album with the band. Keyboard, synth, pianos, guitars, backing vocals. And Kevin Sofara, this is his only appearance on an album with Shadow Gallery. So it's a 6-piece band. And it starts out with the song Cliffhanger, which totally rocks. Very reminiscent of Dream Theater. It's got great electric guitar solos on it and those amazing Mike Baker vocals. Crystalline Dream, track number 3, is hard rock, but it's very melodic and very catchy. Track 5, Don't Ever Cry, Just Remember, 6.5 minutes. It's a ballad, but it has, let's say, cojones to it. It's flute solo, alert, on Don't Ever Cry, Just Remember. There's a great flute solo. War Cry is a heavy melodic track. Deeper Than Life is another heavy metal rocker in the vein of Dream Theater, with just crazy guitars on it. Alaska is a beautiful acoustic ballad with some great keyboard work and acoustic guitars. Love Alaska, very underrated track from the album. And it ends with the epic 22-minute Ghost Ship. And this should be a better known song. And every aspect, every player in the band shines through on this song. And it's worth listening to this song alone for the 5-minute piano solo from Chris Ingalls. That is amazing. I love that classical piano solo. That's about 3/4 of the way through the song. There is an unlisted instrumental bonus track that sort of is very pompy in the vein of Magnum. And I invited these guys. At the time, I co-owned a record store on Long Island, New York. And I invited them to come down and do an in-store and maybe play an acoustic set. But unfortunately, at the time, they were not playing any shows in the mid-90s, late 90s, early 2000s. They did not tour, which was basically Europe, until 2010. And by then, unfortunately, Mike Baker had passed. So that's my first one.
Nice.
Shadow Gallery.
Good one.
Thank you. Moving on to 1997 from Connecticut. And this record was independently released by the band Crucible.
Oh,
Tall
nice.
Tales.
Nice.
And check out
Great
this
album.
cover. This has an epic 20+ minute title track called An Imp's Tale. And you see the imp right there on the cover. It's a very cool cover. Everything's backwards on StreamYard. This is my first StreamYard show, so you'll have to excuse me. There we go. That's a little better. So it's got 8 tracks, and the last track, An Imp's Tale, is a multi-sweet track, 20+ minute song. So they self-released this in '97. If you love 70s Genesis, you're going to love Crucible. It's going to be right up your alley. This was produced and engineered by Michael Becerra. It's about an hour long. And although it sounds like Genesis, it's not totally derivative. It has a modern production edge, and it's got some nice heavy guitars. Very well produced. Each instrument comes through, just like Shadow Gallery. And I noticed as I was doing all my notes and picking all my choices that the trend that I love with these things are great, high, clear vocals, harmony vocals, and great interplay between the keyboards and guitars on all my choices. That's my sweet spot. And I like a lot of neo-prog. So a lot of these bands also fit with IQ and Pendragon in that realm. And Crucible is definitely no exception. This is hard to find on CD. It's not on Spotify, but it is on YouTube, although not consecutively. You have to piece the 8 tracks together, but it's well worth listening to. And the band covered, a lot of people say the singer sounds like Geddy Lee, but I don't hear that. I think he sounds more like Steve Walsh from Kansas. And he's got a great voice, great high tenor voice. And they do a great cover of Closet Chronicles live by Kansas that you could find on the internet. So definitely search out Crucible covering Closet Chronicles from Point of No Return, a near 7-minute amazing song by the great Kansas. This band features Bill Esposito on vocals. I'm guessing it's his brother Dan Esposito on guitars, Tim Horan on keyboards, flute, acoustic guitars, and he writes the songs, Chris Casitas on bass, and Tony Capolina on drums. Hope I got everyone's names correct there. Like I said, it's 8 tracks, and I first saw these guys at Nearfest in Pennsylvania, the very first Nearfest in 1999. Crucible played, and I was so impressed with their set that right after I went to one of the vendors and bought the CD. The highlights on this album, Over the Falls, the opening 7-minute track, just the way it has the cascading keyboards and guitars, great intro, it's very melodic. The Poet Liar, track number 2, it has a flute solo, memorable chorus, and it's fast and upbeat. There's a nice 3-minute instrumental here called In Ancient Tongue that's sort of reminiscent of 70s Genesis with the acoustic guitars. I think there's some Mellotron there for all you big Mellotron fans. And then, of course, the classic, the 21-minute plus track, An Imp's Tale, divided into 7 parts. That's worth the price of admission here. They did one follow-up album. This came out in '97, Tall Tales. And their follow-up came out in 2001 called Curtains. It's a good record, but I don't think it reaches the heights of the debut album. The second album does contain a cover of Crack the Sky's Nuclear Apathy. So for all you prog purists who love the American prog band Crack the Sky, Nuclear Apathy, the Crucible's cover of it, is worth hearing. I think the second album is a little flawed, but the debut album, Tall Tales, that's the one I'm picking here.
Fantastic pick. Really, really, really good album.
Thank you. I concur, sir. Okay, my next choice, I don't have a hard copy. This is from 1998, but I do have a picture of the album cover, and I think everyone will know who the artist is who did the logo and the cover painting.
Oh, yeah.
Got to get it centered.
Ad Infinitum.
Okay, there we go. Ad Infinitum. The band is Ad Infinitum from New York. And Roger Dean did the artwork. He did the band logo. It's a very hard CD to find. This is not on Spotify, but it is on YouTube. Originally, this came out on the Kinesis label. New York-based band, and it's one of those great one-and-done bands. And if you look on YouTube in the comments section, the leader of the band, Todd Braverman, the keyboard player, guitar player, bass player, he does bass pedals, great bass pedals on this album that you have to listen for. He said 7 years ago they were working on the follow-up, but nothing since then, just crickets, unfortunately. But I love this record. Besides Todd Braverman, Craig Wall on guitar, bass, and backing vocals, Mike Goose Seguso on lead and backing vocals. If I'm pronouncing his name right, it's Ilan, I-L-A-N, Goldman on keyboards, lead and backing vocals. David Beers on bass, Don DiPaolo on drums. And this is over an hour long. It's probably closer to 70 minutes long. 10 tracks. There's a reprise of the title track, Ad Infinitum, that starts out the album 8.5 minutes. And then the reprise ends the album at 2.5 minutes. The track here that I love, besides both Ad Infinitum songs, Waterline, one of my favorite Prog songs ever. It's 12 minutes long, and a lot of times I just play this song over and over. It's melodic. This album has great keyboards, great guitars, the way they interplay with each other and all the band members. This is an amazing Prog album. Throwback to the 70s. They use vintage equipment, but it has modern production values. You can hear every instrument. Production work is great on here. So besides Waterline, just that chorus is just playing in my head right now. It's a soaring chorus. A lot of the music that I like, I noticed also, sounds like Triumph. If Triumph were a pure prog band without like the hard rock, heavy metal aspect, a lot of the stuff I like is very positive, very upbeat. I mean, I do like, Sad Bastard, pardon my French, music sometimes too, but this is just so uplifting. And listening to a lot of these records always puts me in a good mood. The Crucible is always in my car. The Shadow Gallery is always in my car. That's where I pulled the CDs out of my glove compartment last night, because I constantly play these when I drive to work. Another really good short song here, Physician Heal Thyself, and All Hallows Eve. For all you Genesis fans, this sounds like Entangled Part 2. It sounds like an outtake from Trick of the Tail or Wind and Wuthering. Great vocals, 12-string acoustic guitars, some Mellotron keyboard sounds, some old vintage Hammond sounds. And this song is amazing. All Hallows Eve I recommend, besides Waterline and the title track, Ad Infinitum. I'm still waiting for the follow-up. If you're there, Todd Braverman, I hope you're watching. I hope you hear me. And I hope you grace us with a follow-up to this debut album.
What year was that? 1998,
1998, yep.
Wow.
So it's over 25 years old. Another beautiful Roger Dean album cover. So that's my third pick. My fourth pick, I don't have a hard copy of because most of my music is in storage, unfortunately. Moving on to 1999 from the Kinesis label. Alvatar, A Story 2 Days Wide. Another neo-prog band, another great album. This is my personal favorite. They've released 4 albums. A Story 2 Days Wide came out in 1999. Another throwback to 70s Genesis, maybe some 80s Marillion in there. And out of their 4 studio albums, this is my favorite. It's an hour long. They're from Baltimore, Maryland. And this one is on Spotify, because it might be very hard to find because Kinesis, I think, went out of business a long time ago.
Yeah.
This is produced by the band, and it's their only CD out of the 4 on Spotify for some reason. I saw this band at the second Near Fest in 2000. They played, and they were really good. Glenn McLaughlin on vocals, Dennis Mullen on guitars, great guitar player, electric, acoustic, everything. Jim Rezick is the keyboard player. He's friggin' awesome. Dean Morkis, if I'm pronouncing his last name right, on bass, and Chris Mack on drums. So it's a quintet, 5-piece band, 7 songs on here. The first song, Sojourns, it contains the title track of the album and the lyrics, A Story 2 Days Wide. It's rocking, it's melodic. Holidays and Miracles might be my favorite song here, 8.5 minutes long. That guitar solo at the end of the song is amazing. It's got a great chorus you could sing along to. phonetic keyboard work, and it's melodic and upbeat, and I love it. Short track, Even Angels Fall, is a nice, mellow, low-key ballad before the classic epic track, Indian Rain, that's almost 16 minutes long, that ends the album. And that is the song to hear. Some great acoustic guitar work that seems to come out of nowhere. The last 5 minutes of this song are superb. And the way everyone blends together, you hear the bass, the drums, the guitars, the keyboards, the vocals. Amazing track. That is probably my good recommendation from this album is Indian Rain. And I just like the way it's produced. And you can hear the bass on here. And sometimes on later Dream Theater records, I think the bass gets lost. But on all my records, you can really hear the bass. This is for fans of IQ and Pendragon. And this is a really good headphones album. And my last choice, we're going to move into
Here we go. Drum roll.
From the 2000s, I have the CD here. It's an import. There it is. Kino. Picture.
Fabulous.
And this features on bass guitar and backing vocals, Peter Travis from Marillion is on here. On lead vocals and guitar, the great John Mitchell from Arena, who's a great singer, songwriter, guitar player. That guy has it all, and he's in too many bands to mention besides Arena. He played with It Bites when they reformed, when Francis Dunnery was out of the band. On keyboards, another maestro, a lord of the boards, Mr. John Beck. And he even sings lead vocals on a track here called Swimming in Women, which is a great song. It's very low-key and eerie. The keyboard work, the vocals on Swimming in Women, great song, about 5.5 minutes long. But the track here to listen to, track number 1, Losers Day Parade, 9 minutes long. It's a mini epic. And John Mitchell's guitar riff in this song is sick. His solo, and about 7.5 minutes into the song, John Beck starts playing the synth line. And from there, the song just takes off to the ending with Mitchell's vocals and just those keyboards. And then Mitchell's melodic guitar solo. Once he stops singing and starts doing a guitar solo towards the end of the song, it's amazing. I recommend anyone who doesn't know this song, who loves Arena, who loves Marillion, check out Losers Day Parade. It's on Spotify and it's on YouTube. This is a little bit of a pop prog album, prog pop album. There's great hooks, catchy choruses. The songs are anywhere from like 4 minutes to the 9-minute Losers Day Parade. And it has that SuperTramp feel to it. Like, Scott, you did that show on Sea of Tranquility with Pete and Grant Arthur and Brendan. I forgot his last name.
Yeah, Brendan Snyder.
And that's it. And you guys were talking about, and you came up with the term prog adjacent. Some of this is prog adjacent, but it's very, very catchy.
Yeah.
And I recommend it from 2005, Kino Picture.
Fantastic.
And there's even some good live clips on the internet. Oh, I forgot to mention on drums. How could I forget? Chris Maitland from Porcupine Tree. And that guy puts on a clinic. He puts on a clinic on this album. And just hearing his drums on Losers Day Parade, that guy's a force. And I know the wood drummer who followed him in Porcupine Tree might even be better, but Maitland is a really, really, really good drummer.
Yeah, he is.
I should do, thank you. I should do my honorable mentions now.
Do it all, man. I want it all now.
I want it all, and I want it now. As Queen wants.
Give it to me.
Okay, this is not the original cover. This is a European reissue of a record by Billy Currie from Ultravox.
Oh my!
This is an all-instrumental album, and you will see Steve Howe's name on there. Billy Currie. The album's called Transportation with guest Steve Howe. And this is a really good instrumental album. You might say it's a little new age. It's all keyboards and from Billy Currie from Ultravox. He plays some viola on here. And Howe, you can definitely tell it's Steve Howe. Personally, my favorite guitar player is on here. It plays on 6 out of the 8 songs. So if you want mellow, low-key, instrumental keyboard music with some great Steve Howe guitar runs, this is the album. It came out in 1988 originally, but this is a repressing from 2000. And then my last choice that I will show off today, sorry to take up so much time, this is definitely Prog adjacent, and this is one of my favorite albums by this band. Scott, it's a band you guys discussed. It is SuperTramp, Famous Last Words. This is the last studio record. Oh, by the way, this cover looks, I always thought when Dream Theater put out A Dramatic Turn of Events in 2011, the first Dream Theater album without Mike Portnoy, the first one with Mike Mangini, the cover always reminded me of 1982's Famous Last Words by SuperTramp. StreamYard is backwards. This is how you do it. Now I see. But I love this record. It's pop. It's catchy. It's prog adjacent. And the last two, before I even go into the last two songs that bring the prog, I think, on this record, the Wilson sisters sing backing vocals on 2 songs. And you could definitely hear Ann and Nancy singing along in the mix. Second Heart mention on this show. But the last 2 songs on this album, for anyone who thinks that Roger Hodgson is just a singer and a songwriter and a keyboard player, his guitar work on the song Waiting So Long, he does an elongated solo. It's like a 6-minute track, and he burns on guitar. So you want to hear Roger Hodgson play guitar, that is my favorite guitar solo by Hodgson in the whole SuperTramp catalog. It's at the end of Waiting for So Long. It's like maybe a 2-minute solo. It's amazing. And then the last song, Don't Leave Me Now, it brings the prog also. And you can say there's a little bit of prog on the first track, Crazy, which is another Hodgson song. But as far as a pop prog album goes, this is very underrated. I think it's very catchy. The problem was they waited too long. This came out 3 years after Breakfast in America. Breakfast in America, 1979. This came out in 1982. But it's still a worthwhile listen. So prog adjacent, SuperTramp.
There you go. Really nice job, Davey. What an entree, man. That's the way to do it. That's the way to introduce yourself to the fans here. Well done. And I couldn't agree more. Some of those choices were outstanding. Really, really well done. Anyway, who's going next? Wayne, let's do it.
Let's do it, man.
I know you've got some axes to grind, and I think sometimes you go out of your way to be a little controversial. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but it just so this is always a pleasure to hear from you, Wayne, all the way in the wilds of Alberta. You live in this crazy part of the world, so I guess it makes sense you got some crazy opinions about stuff, but here we go. It's the part of the show everybody looks forward to. Is the part where we make Wayne big.
Oh man,
there we go.
Alrighty. This was really, really hard to just come up with just 5. That there's so many great albums out there. So I came into this and I thought, you know what, underrated, obscure a little bit. So I know people like sometimes hearing some of my really obscure picks, so I figured why not. First album I'm going to talk about is Return to the Sabbath by Black Widow.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh man, like this album, I remember hearing it. There's something about it that the mixture of how would I put it? The mixture of sort of the new emerging prog scene with like kind of psychedelic elements, with also having the satanic undertones of this album just really work. And it does at times feel very dark, very mysterious, very doomy, but it's an album I just absolutely love. And
you got anything to say to Kyle here?
Oh man, where do I start? Probably Dead Winter Dead would probably be my choice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good call. Good call. We love you, Kyle.
Yep. Album number 2 I'm going to talk about is one that I didn't hear until about a month ago, and I heard it, and I'm like, this is a really good album. Ballad of a Peaceful Man by Gravy Train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Like, I just listened to it, and I'm like, this is amazing to listen to. Like, it's kind of really shocking that, like, it never quite picked up, because I'm listening to this and I'm like, this is very easily digestible. Even for prog, the vocals on it are great. Yeah. On to album number 3. This is one, not sure if it's quite on that list, but it's one of my all-time favorite records by this band. Air Cut by Curved Air.
Curved Air, yeah.
Sonia Christina, Eddie Jobson's on this album. Just the great work. Really the way the album flows, all the different moods, different kind of ideas, like having the purple speed queen, you have the soft elfin boy. And I think, in my opinion, one of the great album closers, Easy, is just listening to Eddie Jobson's keyboard work on that song mixed with Sonia Christina's voice works really well. Such a great record.
Awesome.
Album number 4. Whoa. This is one where I remember the first time looking at this album cover and thinking, when did Slash have a early 70s rock band? And I'm going to talk about Shinky Chen and Friends by Shinky Chen.
Huh?
Just
Never heard of
Excuse me? What?
It's
I don't know
kind of
this.
on the more psych side than I'd say
Yeah.
prog. But whenever you're kind of considered like Japan's Jimi Hendrix, got to be some really good stuff. And I listened to it, and if you really like a lot of guitar heavy music, I think you'd definitely be into this. Just a weird record to listen to. Just
You gotta put your picks in the comments, because that's one I have no idea about.
Yeah, I'll definitely put in the comments for you, Scott. Number 5. Ooh. I'm gonna go with the debut by a German krautrock band, Epitaph. And that song, Early Morning, is just fantastic. Like, just the moods, the way it goes through, the guitar playing on it. Starts off very soft, melodic, and then just picks up this steam that I was listening to it and I'm like, Jesus, like it. My dad always went and told me that the one of the problems about the early to late 60s, early 70s was that there was so much music coming out. It was hard to keep up with every band coming out. But this is one where I'm like, oh, had they released it just at the right time, I think they could have been really big. My honorable mentions are When the Hippies Killed the Blues by Lucifer's Friend.
Yeah.
Would be one. Made in England by Atomic Rooster.
Wow.
Morgan, self-titled debut from '69, more of a psych pop at times album. And what's the last one here? Charged by Paladin, and Seven Secrets by Fruit.
Ooh.
And that's my list.
Anything by Fruit.
Great choice.
Anything by Fruit definitely going to make my list.
Good calls.
Wow, going obscure. I like it.
Always
A lot of
pulling the
70s
crazy stuff.
I got a little more homework to do, as if I need more homework to do. You know,
I love to listen to those. And speaking about Dave's picks as well, there's a lot of those I have to. And that's the fun thing about being up here, because people are really giving out great stuff.
And that's why I kind of want to keep, not too many. There's 6 of us up here. If we're all given, 10 plus 10 honorable mentions, now that's 120 different things for the good people in the audience to be writing down and taking notes about. So, when we keep it a little more limited, then people can actually go back and research this stuff, and they don't get too overloaded. But, hey, if I have to listen to all this stuff, so do you. So, I'm not going to be that forgiving. Anyway, Cody, as always, it's interesting to see how your brain is handling this subject, and you're next up in the hot seat. What you got for us for the most underrated prog albums?
Well, here we are. So I picked some. Well, one album is not prog with a capital P, but the rest all are. I picked only 6. I know you said 5 way back, and so I had to bend the rules just a little bit. I didn't do any honorable mentions, though I could have done many.
Oh yeah.
I had to take a couple off. I'm like, you know what? I'm just doing 6, and that's it. So I'm going to start off. These aren't obviously in any particular order, but tons of Peter Gabriel fans, and this one still seems to get a little bit under the radar here. His second album, Peter Gabriel 2. I love this record. It was produced by Robert Fripp. No radio singles or anything on this one, like all the other albums, like have Salisbury Hill or Games Without Frontiers or Sledgehammer or whatever. This one is there's none of that on here. I mean, there could have been with DIY or something, but even then, there's too many time changes in it, right? So, yeah, A Wonderful Day in a One-Way World, White Shadow, Animal Magic, great stuff. And super underrated. Obviously, it has its fans, but I still think it's underrated. And this one too. Again, it kind of has like a cult following. There is people who do love this album, but in the grand scope of things in this band's catalog, most people don't usually think to list this as one of their favorites. So, Dream Theater, yes, we got the New York up in here for Davey Cretin. Dream Theater, Systematic Chaos from 2007. This record absolutely blows my mind. In the Presence of Enemies Part 1 and Part 2 to bookend the album, it is just amazing. This is the deluxe version with the bonus DVD, so you get the documentary of how they wrote the album, the 5.1 surround sound mix of it. Very good, very good. And, Forsaken, Constant Motion, The Dark Eternal Night, just great stuff. I mean, this is one of their heaviest albums, absolutely. And I know that there's some Dream Theater fans who don't love that side of them. I love that side of them. I love metal. I love prog, and when they come together in such a fine outing like this, I can't complain, man. Systematic Chaos from Dream Theater.
Good call, and that is an album that kind of gets forgotten about, because people that point to the heaviest Dream Theater album will probably go to Train of Thought. If you're looking for the proggiest album, you go here or there. Systematic Chaos kind of gets lost in the shuffle, and you're right, it's awesome.
That's a great album. I'm one of the fans that likes pretty much the majority of their output. I think they made so many great records, honestly, but that's absolutely, that to me is in like a hot peak of their career. There's like a 10-year period where it's just like everything was absolutely perfect all the way through. Honestly, great stuff. They really hit some sort of stride. I love the 90s albums, Images and Words, Awake, all those records too, and the one with Derek Sheranian as well. But something happened on Scenes from a Memory, and the next 10 years is just like boom, 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 perfect. Love the Mangini stuff too. And next up on my list, we got Jethro Tull's A.
Yeah. Good call.
Nice.
David Pegg's bass playing on this is worth it just for that alone. This is the cool 40th anniversary CD set, remixed by Steven Wilson. And this is the album remixed by Steven Wilson. I love Working John, Working Joe. I'm a sucker for fretless bass, and David Pegg's got it going on. Mark Creaney on drums, Martin Barr on guitar, where he should be. Ian Anderson, take a hint, take a note. And of course, Eddie Jobson does features on this too. And Crossfire, Black Sunday, yeah, really good album. And this is definitely sort of under the radar when it comes to Jethro Tull's catalog. Most people will go for, well, they're literally top of the pile albums like, Thick as a Brick and Heavy Horses, Aqualung, all those records. But this is, kind of like in the next steps of Jethro Tull, and it's really good. I really like this album a lot. So, yeah, more people should be turned on to this.
It's the Tull album that had 3 soloists, right? I mean, you had Ian soloing on flute. You had Eddie Jobson, who wasn't utilized nearly as much as he should have been on that record, and then Martin Barr. So you had 3 soloists, and it was a unique album in their catalog. Just love it. I thought
and it's very interesting to think about the fact what it's one of those what ifs, right? If that had been a soul album, which it was supposed to be, an Ian Anderson soul album, would we then be talking about it? Would it be as talked about as much as a outlier in the Jethro Tull catalog? Who
knows? Right?
Nobody talks about solo albums. Nobody cares.
No.
Well, next up, I'm going to talk about a band that I think this album is very proggy in leanings. Obviously, this is the one thrash metal outing that I'm bringing to the table here. But this is from 2008. This is Metallica's Death Magnetic.
Whoa.
Yeah. Again, there's a cult following for this album, but I feel like it is definitely underappreciated for how truly awesome it actually is all the way through. It is just a banger of an album. All the songs are long, think back to like Injustice for All, where most of the songs were around the 7 to 9 minute mark. That's the same thing going on here with the complex arrangements that, you sit behind an instrument and you go, what the hell was that? You got to back it up and play it over again. It's like, what the, Cyanide is one of those songs that has that really cool break in the middle where it just goes off into this really cool, unexpected, uncharted territory, right? And All Nightmare Long, Riff Salad, That Was Just Your Life, just great. And it has an instrumental on here too, a 10-minute instrumental with Suicide and Redemption, and it comes back out into My Apocalypse. This album is a real banger, produced by Rick Rubin. Some people kind of talk about its production and how it sounds kind of brick-walled. I really like this record, and the music on this just absolutely rules. And I'd say if you like the more metallic side of prog, this is not necessarily a prog album, but they were good friends with Dream Theater and those bands and stuff, and so obviously Metallica, even going back to the 80s, definitely had progressive leanings, even though they were always considered to be a thrash metal band, right? But even earlier songs like Call of Cthulhu and Orion and stuff are very proggy, and Metallica have always had that side to them for sure. So Death Magnetic, very underrated record.
Nice.
Now we're going to go to the 80s. We're going to go back to 1985 with my favorite Canadian band, Rush. Signed by all 3 Rush members.
Look at that.
Oh.
Hey.
Yeah. Signed by Neil, Alex, and Cody right there.
Oh, man.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. I love this record. And then there's some Rush fans. Most diehard Rush fans love all the Rush records. Rush, I don't think Rush ever made a bad album, really. I personally don't. But I still find this one to be underrated. A lot of Rush fans go from 75 to 82 in the catalog. And there's so many great records after that. Even the people who maybe don't like the sound of early Rush, I'm like, listen to the 80s, 90s, 2000s Rush, Snakes and Arrows and this and Hold Your Fire. Sure, this is definitely 80s sounding, but it sounds really cool. I love the production on this. Just like when you listen to it, you can hear when the big money comes on, you put the needle down on the record and you can Scott Davis just screaming.
Tara, you're very observant, and you're probably not wrong. Actually, I have a thing for I have a thing for Rush, and I have a thing for autographs. So that's stroking me in a couple of places. Where do you live again, Cody?
Ontario, Canada. Yeah. I creamed myself with this one too. I'm going to have to peel off my underwear after the show, but yeah, love this album. And listening to this, I hope that it gets a surround sound remix, because as soon as you put it on, you hear something like the Big Money, and you hear like the Cash sounds going all between the left and right. I'm like, if there's any album that was begging for some sort of Dolby Atmos surround sound mix, it is this one, man. You've done Dark Side of the Moon, you've done some of the other Rush albums. Do this thing. I want to hear this in surround sound so bad. I even did a video about it on my channel here, Brockway's Vinyl Bites, a while back. So go check that out. But yeah, Neil Peart's drum sounds on this, and Geddy Lee's bass playing, just amazing.
Yep,
just amazing. Power Windows. And my number one is, I've heard some people say that. Well, obviously, there's lots of people who love this band. All of you on the panel love this band. But this album always seems to sort of fall a little bit under the radar. Even with some of their newer stuff, people are saying, I prefer the newer stuff over since, Going for the One or anything like that. So we got the latter.
Yeah.
The album is
that almost went on my list. Yeah,
that's the right one.
Interesting one.
I think this album is absolutely fantastic. This album just reminds me of being a kid, because this came out just after I was born. This came out in '99, and this reminds me, because my dad is arguably the biggest Yes fan I've ever met. He saw them like 20 times, and I know there's some Yes fans who've seen them like 150 times. But
yeah, and remember, we got Jeff Shilka lurking in the peanut gallery.
Oh yeah, Jeff's gonna come out. Jeff's going to come out smiling with this one. But yeah, Dad saw Yes like 20 times, and so he was all over this album when it came out, and I just happened to be, recently hatched, I guess. and so I hear this, and it reminds me of growing up and hanging out with my parents, and my mom loved it too, and so I listened to this with both of them all the time, and makes me quite emotional. It's just a really nice record, and the songs are amazing. Some of Steve Howe's best guitar playing here. The band is really gelling at this point, even with Igor Koroshev. So you got Alan White, of course, Igor, Steve Howe, Chris Squire, John Anderson, and this is this is one of my favorite Yes albums. I just love it. Produced by Canadian Bruce Fairbairn, who actually passed away during the recording of this album.
Yes, he did.
But this album, I just find that it gets so underrated in the Yes fandom, and you can't. It has to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a top 5 Yes record. Period.
Absolutely. Every song is brilliant on this. So that's my
nice.
Beautiful. The 2 9-minute tracks are great on there. The 2 mini epic tracks are great.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, New Language. I love it. My dad's
a little much with top 5. Who you taking out of the top 5? Relayer, the Yes album, Tales, Fragile, Close to the Edge. I'll put it top 10 though.
I want to say something.
Let your imagination run wild.
I want to say something a little funny here before we move on. Is that my dad somewhere has a home video of me, just a young boy sitting on the couch, singing every word to Homeworld.
Nice.
I used to sit at his computer and read and learn Yes lyrics when I was like 8 years old. I'm not even kidding.
You have to do a drum video to that, and you have to cue yourself up.
Well, I did do Close to the Edge a little while ago. I don't know if some of you guys saw that, but I've done Close to the Edge, La Via Strangiato, The Barbarian, a bunch of songs. So that's all on the channel.
Yeah,
it's all Brockway's Vinyl Bites.
Amazing stuff. Good job, Cody.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
We've got next up, we've got a man that comes prepared. He's going to give us a top 10. I asked him for 5. He's going to give you 10. And I'm not going to tell a guy who puts out records as good as the last 2 Myth of Logic albums have been. So without any further ado, let's get to Scott Davis and his list.
Well, I have to apologize. I misunderstood. I didn't catch the top 5 thing. So I had a top 10 and 8 honorable mentions. I'm throwing away my honorable mentions. So let's call this 5 with 5 honorable mentions.
There you go.
I apologize.
You do it. You do whatever you want, man.
Do you have my list there so you know which one I'm talking about?
Oh, now you're asking me to be organized.
Oh, that's okay. Don't worry about it. I'm going to start
just give me a lead and I'll figure it out.
These are in no particular order because
right.
they're all under-recognized in my opinion. I'm going to start with Star Castle, an album called Citadel from October of 1977. A wonderful album. Roy Thomas Baker produced it. The sounds are awesome. Big, huge, wonderful vocals, great songs. If you like Yes, you will appreciate Star Castle at the very least, if not love them on the level that I do. I grew up in northeastern Kansas, and they played quite a bit through the Midwest, and it was always a rare treat to see those guys. So number 10, Star Castle with Citadel.
You know, I almost put their 4th album, Real to Real,
yeah,
or whatever, for underrated, because for years I hated that thing. It's actually a really good AOR album.
It is. It's very different than their other albums, but it's very well done. All right, moving on to my number 9, Spock's Beard with Snow. I love this album, and I've only grown to love it more with time. It's big, it's expansive, it's ambitious. It's not always successful, but for the most part of it, in my mind, it is very successful. And I would argue that this is where the Neil Morse that we have come to know and love with Transatlantic and those expansive works and with his solo works, this is the album where that Neil Morse really was born, where he fully fleshed out a large, expansive concept over 2 CDs worth. And it's really the only downer for me about this album is that you listen to it now knowing that this was the last time that those 5 guys would create a record together. And it's a bit sad in that way because they were all at the top of their game. Nick DiVirgilio on drums in particular just shines throughout. Ryo Okamoto on keyboards, one of my favorites. Dave Meros, a man who sounds like Chris Squire on a really bad day, in a really bad mood. He's just got this angry, rumbling cut to everything he does. And then, of course, Alan Morse plays guitar all over the place. It's just a fantastic record. And I don't think that it gets the proper recognition that it should for what it really is. I don't think anybody really understood it at the time when it came out. You know, we bought it and we're like, okay, it's huge. It's 2 CDs. And, I was on a Spock's Beard message board at the time. If you remember those, where you'd get an email dump every couple of every day or every 6 hours or whatever it was. And we were all full of questions about it. And, the next thing we knew, Neil was out and he was gone doing his own thing. So moving on to number 8, Echolin, an album called As the World. Love this album. If Gentle Giant has a true successor, it is Echolin, and it is particularly this album. It was their only major label record, and they really swung for the fences on this one. Fantastic songs. Cheese Stands Alone is on this one. It's just a great, great album from beginning to end. Great production value, tremendous playing all the way through it. Never gets the nods, even when you're talking about Echolin. It seems that the people who love the band, and I do love Echolin a lot, kind of overlooked this one. And I don't know whether it was on a major label that maybe is the reason for that. I don't know. But
what's your favorite Echolin album, Scott?
As the World.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it is.
I agree.
Yeah,
That's
they put their whole vision together in such an expansive but still accessible way. I really, really like that album a lot. So moving on, number 7, It Bites, The Tall Ships. This album, it's in constant rotation in all of my playing stations for music playing, in the car, at the shop, at home. Love John Mitchell in this band, and I loved the original It Bites with Francis Dunnery. Still one of my favorite bands, but I have a very strong affection for everything John has done with It Bites, and the Tall Ships is just, it's so punchy and expansive, and it's not hard to listen to, but it has complexity. And I love John's vocals a lot. He has a very rich, honest quality about his voice that's never forced, something that's sometimes missing with certain prog artists. Just a very warm, honest quality about his voice and the lyrics. One of my favorite bands, and if I'm pressed, it might be my favorite It Bites record. The one that came after it, Maps of the World, I think it's called. That one is awesome. And the earlier It Bites stuff with Francis is stunning. It's just stunning. All eras of It Bites are awesome, but this one just seems to not get the props, I think. All right, at number 6, Enchant, Juggling 9 or Dropping 10, released in October 3rd, 2000.
Great band. Absolutely.
The stunning Ted Leonard singing in this band, who then went on later to be in Spock's Beard, Transatlantic, many other things.
Pattern Seeking Animals.
Yeah, Pattern Seeking Animals. Good stuff. Tremendous vocalist. I've always kind of thought he sounded a bit like John Elefante from Kansas, but he's got his own thing, and this album is perfect. There isn't a bad song on it. Back when I was still riding bikes and not walking every day, I used this album in my little mini disc player to ride bikes to, and it's great because it has a very propulsive rhythmic feel throughout that are just wonderful, and it's very okay, the first song starts out with a riff that suspiciously sounds like the main theme from Xanadu by Rush, but it's not the same. It's in a different key, and it is slightly different, but it does evoke that in a certain way. But the album is great. It's produced well, very well written. Again, Ted Leonard singing Ted could sing the phone book, and I'd probably plop my money down. Okay, moving to number 5, Crack the Sky, Safety in Numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Criminally underrated band, and an absolutely shame that this band, and particularly this album, get overlooked when people are discussing prog in general. It's there are various influences to it. I hear a bit of Yes and a bit of Tull and a bit of King Crimson at times, and there's it has I would argue that probably second only to In the Court of the Crimson King does this album have the most expansive dynamic range of just about any album I can remember. It's impressive how they recorded it, but the song Nuclear Apathy is a wonderful song. I actually covered that song in my foolish youth, and I can vouch that singing it and playing the bass part are almost impossible, but I didn't manage to get it under my fingers.
Yeah, I love that band. I love their first 3 albums in particular.
They're all good. Safety in Numbers is the one that kind of gets, I don't know, maybe ignored a bit in my opinion. Anyway, let's see here.
I want to make a shout out to Esoteric Records. Get the contract for those records and release them.
Yep,
that'd be
awesome. Do it.
Yeah,
just do it.
I agree. I funny you should say that. I have some plans in that area, but that's for another day.
All right.
Number 4, David Sanchez and Tone. His album True Stories, and this could be said really about any of David's albums, that they're just under-recognized masterpieces.
I like the $3 sticker.
Isn't that great? I love that picture. Right? How is that for underrated and undervalued? $3 for that?
Okay, here's the question: what do you prefer, them cutting a corner off, or them drilling the hole through the middle? I mean, what do you like better for a cutout?
Probably the missing corner. I have fondness for that because when I was growing up, my dad lived in Lexington, Kentucky after my parents were divorced. And there was a record store there called Cut Corner. And
there you go.
all they stocked were cutouts.
Nice.
And so a great many of my records in my record collection had those cuts and were from Cut Corner. So I kind of like that.
Usually when they have a cut in the corner, I heard that it's because at one point the record somehow got deleted or whatever from the pressing systems at
There's
the time.
a lot of different reasons why.
Yeah, they have to return something to the record company to show they have it, and it's cheaper to ship a little corner than it is to ship the entire record back. So
yeah,
that was to let people know that it had been claimed as lost or destroyed or whatever. So anyway, David Sanchez, fantastic keyboard player, had previously played with Bruce Springsteen, and then he started making prog records, and this one in particular, he made made 3 total in this time period, and this one was engineered and produced by Eddie Offord. It just sounds wonderful. And if you're a fan of great classic keyboard playing, Sanchez is the man for you. Moving on to number 3, Frost, Falling Satellites. I am a nut for Frost. I absolutely adore this band on every level. Jem is a fantastic player, a wonderful singer. I love John Mitchell in that band, obviously. It's just one of my favorite bands. And for some reason, this album is the one that ends up on the bottom of a lot of Frost fans' lists for whatever reason. I don't know why that is, because I love it.
That is. It sounds different, man. It's a different sound in Frost record. They were experimenting like on no other Frost record on this thing.
And I love that.
It's abrasive to the ear sometimes if you're not expecting these ultra modern sounds to be coming out. Yeah, I love it. I think it's an amazing album. But you know why it's at the bottom of some people's lists.
Understood. Obviously, Million Town has a much fatter, warmer sound to it. But I would argue that Million Town has its abrasive moments as well. Not to the extreme of Falling Satellites, but I just love the songs on Falling Satellites. They stick in my head for days. They're just well crafted. Craft is a word that I've used frequently on this show and others. I love albums that are well crafted, and Falling Satellites is definitely well crafted. All right, number 2, Jellyfish, Spilt Milk.
Nice one.
This,
yes.
My friends who do not know of this, seek this out. It is a masterpiece, unqualified. Absolutely. No other description necessary. It's just there's almost nothing like it. It has hints of Queen. It has hints of the Beatles. It's very British sounding at times, and then it's almost punk sounding at times. It just covers so many wide ranges of soundscape, and it's so well produced. Great songs all the way across. Wonderful vocals. It's constantly fascinating. It's one of those records, like a great movie, where you'll spin it and you'll hear something that you've never heard before, particularly on headphones. This is a headphone record for sure. But it's just astoundingly good, and this is an album that makes me grateful that I'm alive when I am, because I got to hear this thing. It's one of those records, and it really is kind of, again, not necessarily as recognized as it should be.
And Mike Portnoy's a big fan, so there you go.
Oh,
yes, sir. He is. He's a huge
I got to see them live. Did you get to see them live?
I never did get to see him live. They didn't do a lot of extensive touring, but I do have a lot of live bootlegs and such of the band, and they were a formidable live band, which is saying something, because their records don't sound like they could be reproduced in a live setting, and they could do it very well.
They did it, yeah.
It's very interesting.
I was a witness. They were great.
Yeah.
It's interesting that they did 2 albums and were done, right?
Yeah. And Belly Button is good. The first album, Belly Button, is good. It's definitely recommended music. But Spilt Milk, they were swinging for the fences and just completely knocked it out of the park, I think. But
I love them both. I think they're both absolutely
I do.
essential records.
Yep, I love them both too. All right, at number 1, Act, Silence. I love this album. It's very disrespected among fans of the band for some reason, and I don't understand that. Act is a weird animal. They kind of remind me of, there was a band back in the hair metal days called TNT that I used to like quite a bit. They would all of their songs were these little 3-minute pieces of pop candy, but they had this incredibly crazy guitar player, Ronnie Letecro, who was just blazing all over the place, and very, very underrated band. But Act is very, their songwriting sensibility is very poppy, but they are not afraid to go ugly. They're not afraid to spin out of control and rope it back in. It's a band that's not mentioned a whole bunch.
Yeah.
And
Right.
amongst their fans, this is an album that ends up at the bottom of the list, and I think it deserves. If you do not know of this band, it's called. I always say it Act, but there's no period after the T, so I think it is Act. But some people say ACT, but I don't know. Go seek it out. It's easily found most places, YouTube, streaming services, etc. It's a tremendous album. It's again very well crafted, and one of my favorites. Scott, if you're okay with it, I'm just going to whiz down my honorable mentions real quick. Tangerine Dream, Le Parc.
You do it. You do it.
Tangerine Dream, Le Parc, one of my favorite albums from the late '80s by Tangerine Dreams. It's hardly ever mentioned. I love that album. Ambrosia, Rhode Island. Another later Ambrosia record that a lot of great songs on it. It's angrier and more proggy than some of their earlier stuff was. A few that aren't under recognized. I'm always going to put Yes Drama on this list because I think it's a masterpiece, and a lot of Yes fans don't have any time for it. Genesis Duke falls in that same category. I think it's one of their best albums.
Me too.
A lot of Genesis fans don't necessarily care for it. Emerson, Lake, and Powell. Tremendous album. Absolutely tremendous album. I don't know what else to say about it than that. I'm going to whiz through these. Nectar, Recycled. No one ever talks about Recycled. Everybody talks about Tab in the Ocean and other Nectar records. For me, it's Recycled. I had that album on 8-track. I absolutely loved it. I wore it out. And then finally, it's a Prog adjacent thing, an album from Jean-Luc Ponty, Enigmatic Ocean.
Cool.
Ooh, yeah.
Love that album. Daryl Sturmer and Alan Holdsworth just playing their butts off all over it. The great Steve Smith on drums. Alan Zavod on keyboards, and the bass player's name was Ralph Armstrong. Just a tremendous album. If you like really good fusion, Enigmatic Ocean, seek that one out. So
Awesome. We love
great list, man. That was a great list.
Yeah.
I want to jump back. I want to jump back with one more because I didn't do any honorable mentions. I want to list one album that I think I should have mentioned. Iron Maiden's Matter of Life and Death.
Oh.
For the greater good of God.
I just had this casually sitting out on the table, and I was like, I have to mention.
Karaoke song.
It is just an
Brighter than a
record.
1,000 suns. Don't even get me started on
I know, man.
Matter of Life and Death. I love it
Great
so
album.
much. So
Sorry
much.
to-
I
Sorry
like
to jump in.
Brave New World.
Yeah,
That don't even get me started on that one, man.
that's
love
not
that.
underrated, though. I think everybody appreciates the greatness of Brave New World. And when
But
Adrian
no one
and
ever-
Bruce came back, you know.
But no one ever talks about what's a Dream of Mirrors.
Yeah.
That song, the 9-minute song. No one ever talks about that. I love that song.
So proggy.
That's
You
the
know,
highlight of the record to me.
Hey,
About
we
that
could
record-
do a whole thing on Iron Maiden. Oh, wait a second, we did do a whole thing on Iron Maiden.
And I was on it.
Scott, what's your favorite Iron Maiden album?
I'm going with Power Slave, but I'm telling you what, Matter of Life and Death and Dance of Death really get my goat. and of course, Peace of Mind is just always going to be fantastic. I love all 17 Iron Maiden albums. I really do. I'm that freak. I love them all. I even love the Blade Bailey albums, man. I'm that guy.
Mine is Killers. Mine will always be Killers. I
love Paul.
I love that album. I loved it when it was new. And nothing on Bruce Dickinson. Obviously, he's a genius. Power Slave is right there with it. Killers will always be my favorite Maiden.
I love that early Maiden sounded totally different, very punk, I mean, the energy level of that band back in 80 and 81 just through the ceiling. Love Maiden. Everybody knows that it's well documented, but what's not well documented, at least not yet, is Pontus's top 5 most underrated prog albums. Pontus, take it away, my friend.
I'm not going to talk about that album, but I love Somewhere in Time. I think it's one of those albums that really needs to be played, and it played very much. And so, as many of people know, I'm the Swedish prog nerd, and I decided that we're going to stay in Sweden for these 5 records.
Nice.
And I have 3 honorable mentions as well. But I just thought, why don't I do a Swedish one? So we start with this one. It's always hard to know that one. Yeah. Den Fule. Den Fule means the ugly one. And here he is. Where is he?
Oh, we're freaking out. Where'd he go? What's going on?
It doesn't see. You see, it's the devil. It's the devil, you know.
Oh, well, that's why it's doing this.
Yes.
The devil does not like Prog Corner.
This is from 93. This is from 93. This is an album of prog rock turned into folk music. It's actually a cross between prog and Swedish folk music. And it's actually based on Swedish or Norwegian folk songs. So you get a lot of violin, lots of brass on here, flutes, lots of rhythms, lots of percussion, but you also get a heavy guitar. So one of the best songs on here is the opener, Tus Ola, which is just named after the guy who wrote the song. But it's a killer. It's a Swedish folk song, but it's rocked up to 10, and it's just fantastic. And they made 2 albums in the 90s. Then they split up, and of course they came back. So then Thule, the first album, I think it's called Luma Lake. It was released internationally, so it's actually out there, and you can listen to it on whatever streaming service you want. It's actually there. So let's see if technology comes forward. And this is for, I hope it works. There it is.
Yay.
This is for you. This is actually for you. This is the great Bo Hansson.
Bo
Hansson. This is the Urtrollkarlens hatt.
The magician's hat.
The Magician's Hat, yes.
Uh-huh.
And it's the second album. This is where all the Scandinavian prog comes from, in a sense. Bo Hansson was a keyboard player. He was a self-taught keyboard player. He started out in a jazz duo called Hansson and Carlson. They made this fantastic album called Monument, which featured a song called Tax Free, that inspired a certain Jimi Hendrix who was visiting Sweden at the time, and they jammed with him. There are jams, but they're rumored to be recorded. I don't know if they were, but he later recorded a few versions of that, and he played it live.
What's not a rumor is that Jimmy did play some Bo Hansson material live, and that's documented.
That's documented. If you listen to the Winterland box set, you hear a fantastic version, and the new sort of 1969, was it Los Angeles disc that was released a couple of years ago. That is an 18-minute version of that.
Yeah.
So Bo Hansen made an album about the Lord of the Rings that was released on Charisma Records. And that was the birth of a Swedish record label called Silence Records. There was, I would say, 3 major Swedish progressive rock labels, record labels in Sweden during the 70s. One was the Metronome, which started out as the Blue Note of Swedish music, and then went into a lot of things, jazz, folk, and everything. And then there was Silence, that was the experimental stuff, the avant-garde stuff. And that was where the instrumental, there you got your Kevin Kaiser's and your Samla Mamas, some of your Samla Mamas Mana was on there. And you have all sorts of freaky things came out on that label. And you have MNV, which was the more sort of rock-oriented, very politically cited stuff, like Hoola Bandoola Band and stuff like that. But Bo did 4 albums that are very essentially the Scandinavian, the prog that if you think Englagard, Englagard is darker, but it definitely has
Aviary.
Yeah.
I just pulled that out. I don't know.
Yeah. It definitely has that sort of feeling. And this has a few things he made for radio and stuff like that. It's if you want to know where Scandinavian prog, the birth of that, this is one of the albums to get. But that is enough, because what about, we talk about an underrated album. If I showed this to a Swedish person, they would probably say, Bo Hansen is not underrated in Sweden. This is, the core thing. This is the canon, right? But this one is not. This is, I hope you can see it. It is The Pork is Burning. Fläsket brinner.
Mm-hmm.
This was in a very early group of Swedish prog. Very much a band, like, in the sense of improvisations. Listening to it now, it very much sounds like the 1969 Mother's Invention.
Yep.
This is very interesting because this record hasn't been released ever since the 70s and was released this year.
And there is a Bo Hansen connection, right?
Yeah, there is, because he used to play with those guys.
Yeah.
There's even one song that's called Bo's Song, or Busse's Låt. Busse is the short one. If you instead of calling people Richard, you call them Rick or Dick, or you call them William becomes Bill, and Busse is the like Lars is Lasse and all that stuff. But one of Busse's songs are on here, and it's recorded live for the most part in the studio in a live setting, and it's very sort of, you hear the Zappa references. There's a song here that's 40 minutes long that's called Tyska Finskan, which I think you can pronounce like the German woman from Finland, right? So this is released now, both on vinyl and on CD, actually. So I strongly advise people to get this. This is one of the most improvised and things like that, when it comes to Swedish music in the 70s. And they had the second album, and then they were done a double album called The Pork, or the Fläsket, as we say. And so that is just a fantastic group and a fantastic album to get. This is another one of those bands that we've mentioned it. I've mentioned this before. Samla Mana. Yes, we're on M&V because this is the Snorungarnas Symfoni. This is from 1976. This is more like Zappa meets Soft Machine. Snorungarnas Symfoni, you can actually translate it into the Brat Symphony. It was written by a British guy who was here. He was Greg Fitzpatrick. He wrote the music. They played on it. It was the last Samla Mammas Manna album with the original lineup of Lars Holmer and Costa Petria and Hans Brunius, who later became a member of Flower Kings, and Lars Kranz as well. And they had a lot of friends coming in here and doing lots of the brass sections and all that. And it's four sections. Section 1 to movements, really. Movement 1, 2, 4. So it is a symphony in a sense, but it's like circus music, right? But with a bite. So you get great guitar, you get great drumming, a lot of humor. This was a humorous band. So that is a fantastic album they made. Then they became Samla Mammas Manna with a set, and then Von Samla. So there's a universe there where you can actually go and get quite lost in. But that is the fourth album by them.
Nice.
Where am I? I'm at my number 1, and I want to show this. This is from 2023. This is the album by Mats Öberg. It's called Visa från Inneröra, Songs from the Inner Ear. This is a musician that I actually know quite well. He's been he worked with Morgan Ågren for a long time, Mats and Morgan band, and they of course got very the big break was when Zappa was here in 88 in Stockholm. They invited him because they had a Zappa tribute band, and they went out and played some miraculous Zappa stuff. And Frank loved it and invited them, and they played on the Zappa universe, those concerts, right? And Matt has done a lot of things during the years with Morgan and without him. And this is his latest solo album. It's a cross between, if you like Zappa, if you like Hatfield in the North, if you like, Mike Neely is on here playing guitar. If you like the Henrik House stuff, beautiful. There's a beautiful singing on it, wordless singing. If you like Chicoria, this is just go and get it. Visa från Inneröra. This was my favorite album of last year. Songs from the Inner Ear. I think it's on Bandcamp. The great Don Bornemark, who used to work with Gentle Giant, he used to have the Gentle Giant website and work for the band and all that stuff and release some stuff. He is invited. He's done this record with Mats, and it's just fantastic. I have a few honorable mentions. This is a band called Parvo. Parvo is a avant-garde jazz sort of ensemble with two girls, one pianist and a singer. This is very much in the Henrik Howe vein, but in more jazzy aspect of it. And it's very funny because she's very sort of she really tries to do new things with her vocals. So she's actually mimicking the music, like something like sort of melodic Yoko Ono stuff, right? It's very funny, and it's very sort of. They made 3 albums, and they just fantastic live. I think this album is a second one. It's actually in Spanish. I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm not going to go there. My last one will be there used to be a trio called Esbjörn Svensson's Trio. Esbjörn Svensson played modern jazz for the 90s. He had a band with Don Berglund on bass and Magnus Öström on drums. They revolutionized the European music scene, jazz scene. Unfortunately, Esbjörn died in a scuba dive accident in 2008. By 2017, they regrouped with a Norwegian keyboard player called Bugg Wesseltoft, which is quite famous for new jazz and stuff like that. And they formed a band called Rymden. And Rymden means space in Swedish, or it means the void. So this is the album Reflection and Odysseys. And this is a piano trio that is going different places, modern sounds, quite proggy, in a jazzy sort of vein. So that's where I stopped.
Nice. Well,
So
that was
that's
outstanding.
my Swedish Odyssey today.
That was beautiful. I think people were enjoying the trip, and I think it's cool when you guys come up with like a different angle because, 5 underrated prog albums. Come on, you could talk about that all day, every day, So I was thinking, do I go with like the old school stuff or some modern stuff? So I ended up just kind of going with the newer stuff, but I did want to just mention a couple things that were like from international like type of regions nobody cared about. How about Indexy? Modra Rajika, what was that, from 1978? I think they were from like Sarajevo or something. What an amazing album that was. Incredible. What about Pesnieri Gusliar? These guys were from behind the Iron Curtain, like Belarus, came out with like this incredible prog rock and Soviet Union Belarus, just amazing. J.A. Caesar with Kokiko Junrika. I mean, nobody gives any of these albums any attention, but they're just amazing. Oh, the one I was listening to this morning, I think they're from like Slovakia or something like that. Modri Effect. Svitani is the album. I guess they went under a couple different names: Modri Effect, M Effect, Blue Effect. I mean, just blows my mind at the greatness of all the prog that was going on in the 70s that nobody talks about, but on places like this. But I'm gonna do 5 modern albums because why not? These are 5 albums that I think are absolute masterpieces that nobody seems to agree with me on. At number 5, I'm going with, from 2020, it's Solo Gratia from Neil Morris.
Oh, man, I love that album.
This album, no, man, come on. This album is every bit as good as Sola Scriptura, every bit as good as Question Mark. This is right up here with Neil Morris's very best work. Some days I prefer it. Some days I think it's the best thing he's ever done.
I love it.
Get the earwax out of your ears, people.
Nice
it's
pull.
amazing. Solo Gratia.
Love that record, man. Great stuff.
Number 4 from 2016. I've heard a lot of people say, you know what, too much John Anderson, not enough Royna Stolt. Is there such a thing as too much John Anderson?
I love that album. I love that album.
Stop it, man. It's the Invention of Knowledge from 2016. I think it's beautiful. I love this record. Anybody that dogs it doesn't like Yes or doesn't like the Flower Kings, because you're just missing out. It's incredible.
They need to do another one.
Yeah, they're working on it. Apparently Anderson Stolt 2 is, somewhere along the lines. It's in the pipeline. So that probably means in John Anderson time, like 2 or 3 years from now. At number 3, an album people in the know about, but not enough people talk about it. This is an album every bit as good as any of the classics from the 70s. Yeah, it's all in Italian, but it's Logos, it's Sadako il Mil Gru de Carta, whatever. I guess it's the 1,000 Paper Cranes, story about a Japanese girl who gets, the bomb drops on Hiroshima. She gets radiation poisoning, and she's told if she makes 1,000 paper cranes, she'll survive. Well, she gets about paper crane number 400, doesn't quite make it. She dies. Sad story. Great album at number 2. Everybody had to throw in their little bit of is it Prog kind of moment today. I'll make no exception. From 2013, it's the 6th album from a band called Biffy Clyro.
Okay.
A lot of people don't understand how great this band is, especially in the United States. I saw these guys on this tour, and they had just gotten off the plane from the UK, where they played in front of like 250,000 people headlining Reading and Leeds Festival, right? And they're playing in front of 150 people at a club called The Basement in Columbus, Ohio. It's just ridiculous. This band is amazing. This is their 6th album. It's called Opposites. It's got Mike Vennert from Ocean Size. If you need a little bit of, prog credentials there. I don't care what anybody says. I think Biffy Clyro's prog. And this was the very last album cover that Storm Thurgeson ever did with Hypnosis, the very last one. Amazing. That's my number 2, and at number 1. From France, you guys know how much I love me some Jean-Pierre Louvaton and his Sapiens Part 1 from 2020. An absolute masterpiece. JPL. Yeah, it's all French, but if you can imagine a dude that grew up listening to Iron Maiden, Thin Lizzy, and Yes, throw it all together and the dude's singing in French. Yeah, it's JPL and Sapiens Part 1. It's a trilogy. There were 3 parts to this thing, but this was the best one, my favorite one. Underrated prog album, man. We could have gone on for days on this subject, Wayne. We really could have. So, that's the 5 I got. Hey, Wayne, what do you got going on your channel this week, man?
Right now, working on my top 10 ranking for Tool songs. So a bunch of Tool.
Yeah.
Then after that, I think the one after that is SuperTramp, top 10 SuperTramp songs.
Nice.
So, then other than that, just filming a few reactions for A Pocket Full of Heap. And kind of still figuring out the StreamYard setup for recording, doing this through a webcam now and a microphone. Hopefully the audio sounds great. But
sounded good here.
But a couple more songs or albums that could get mentioned. An Uncrowned King parts 1 and 2 by Evership.
Especially part 1.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And one that some might say yes or no, Magic is the Child by Nectar. With Robert Fripp on a couple songs.
Yep.
On that
album.
Love it.
Cool.
Good calls, Wayne. Cody, any late pickups here? Anything you want to mention?
Yeah, Marillion Season's End. That album seems to. There's obviously lots of fans of it, but there's some people that it just sort of flies under the radar with. Same with Holidays in Eden.
That was me for a long time.
Yeah, I'm new, and same here. I'm new to Marillion as a whole, and so I really like those records. On my channel on Brockway's Vinyl Bites, I just did a video with Tara O'Reilly, so that's up from Spin Prog, of course. So she's up on my channel. We put that video up yesterday, and before that, I did a video, the unboxing of the new Black Sabbath box set. Really nice set. People have loved that because it got like 1,600 views within the first 2 days. So people have been digging that. That's, it comes when you never expect it, right? But great. Great.
Is that the Tony Martin years? What's going on with that?
Yeah, it's
this is the Anno Domini Tony Martin years from 1989 to 1995.
Underrated records in there, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a theme of this show.
Yeah.
Really mirrors that.
For sure. Yeah.
Love me some Tony Martin.
So the unboxing of this box set is up on my YouTube channel. If you are hesitant in buying this box set, either vinyl or CD, go watch my video and make your decision upon then.
Nice. Nice. Good job, Cody, as always. Thank you so much. Hey, Scott, what's going on, man? What do you got going?
Still slaving away on Light at the End. Still in the thick of guitars. Trying to do a bit of promotion still for pictures. just slaving
Life of a
away at
rock
that.
star.
Yeah. Well, in addition, I've got to move my shop in August. Well, I've got to be out by August 1st. So that's some pressure and, repairs at the shop. But yeah, I'm fully immersed in the guitars and also at the same time doing final vocals. So I'm still shooting for that September 15th release date.
There you go. Part 3 of the trilogy. Shooting for September. We're looking forward to it.
I can't wait for that, man.
Yeah.
What time is it over there for you? Is it like nighttime yet, Pontus?
Oh, it's about 8:30. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's okay. I'm still stoked with this. This is the Robert Plant book that Martin Popoff wrote with a lot of friends, and I'm one of them. I'm really, seeing your quotes in print is just fantastic.
Well, hey, where can you buy the book? People need to buy that.
I think you can buy it from Martin Popoff's site.
Okay.
MartinPopoff.com. Right.
We love Martin. Martin's awesome.
Yeah, we love Martin. I mean, and some contrarians coming up. There's always something new over there. It's a great band. It's a great bunch of great people.
Yeah. Well, I love the Contrarians because I can always go over there. Even if I don't watch the episode, I can steal the episode ideas. And with that in mind, next week on the Prog Corner, it's going to be bands with only one good album. I wonder where I got that idea from.
I found one extra record. I don't know if you can see.
What is it?
It's the Garden of the Elks. Eliana's Trädgård. This is another of those early 70s albums. This is a bonkers record made. It sounds like I think it's called The Future is a hoovering ship anchored in the future. And the music sounds like that. It's a kraut rock, folk music, out there, hippie thing from 72.
Sounds awesome. Awesome.
Another Silence classic.
Nice. And, last but not least, this was little Davey's debut on the Prog Corner. How do you think he did, kids?
Good.
I think he did great. Yeah, you think fantastic.
Thank you.
I think we can put him on the list for a potential future panelist, huh?
Absolutely.
All right.
I just have to take off work again.
Yeah. He did do that. He let me know a couple weeks ago, hey, I requested a day off specifically so that I could be on your little show. So how was I supposed to say no? And he nailed it. He hit it out of the park. The boy was prepared. He was ready to go. I hope you had fun, Davey. So what do you got going on over on your channel?
I did. Thank you. My channel is Cretan Classics. It's a very new channel. I've only been up for about 6 months on YouTube. I don't have much content, but I've made a lot of guest appearances. In fact, this is my 4th guest appearance in 8 days, which for me is a record. I've never done so many shows in a row. So my head is spinning from writing down notes and just listening to a lot of music over the last week and a half.
Well,
and I am getting back.
You saved the best for last.
And exactly. Thanks for having me again. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. And none of us had the same picks. We were all over the place, which was great. It gives the viewers a lot of choices and a lot of different subgenres from prog to check out. And speaking of prog, I'm working on it. My new video is prog adjacent. I am going to rank the catalog of the great Blue Oyster Cult from Long Island, New York. That's going to be my next video.
I love it.
Hopefully up in the next week or so.
Great band.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
We'll be looking for it, man. We love Blue Oyster Cult around here, that's for sure. Anyway, guys, that was a good show. We went a little long, but I hope you don't mind. My wife probably minds. But with that in mind, we're going to do an abbreviated version of my exit right here. So peace in the Middle East, free Tibet, and God save the king, save King Chucky, and I'll see you fools tomorrow. Peace.
Take care.